So in this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to install your Xampp software that we downloaded in the previous lesson. So on the bottom left corner, notice our download is now complete. To verify this download, I can always navigate to my Xampp folder on my computer just to make sure that I have the executable file present or not. So let me in fact first demonstrate by just to make sure that we have the file by going to our Explorer. So I'm going to navigate to my Windows Explorer, and the folder called Xampp that I created earlier is under Data Files and Xampp folder. And notice here is the Xampp Win32 file, executable file. I can obviously install directly from here by simply clicking twice on it, and it will bring up the Xampp installer. Or if I'm downloading or it has downloaded right off of my web browser, I can simply click on the Xampp installer. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Xampp installer. This is going to open up the Xampp installer, and it displays a warning message that says important because an activated user account control on your system, some functions of Xampp are possibly restricted. With UAC, please avoid to install Xampp to your C drive or deactivate UAC with the msconfig after the setup. Now what this does is simply is warning you that you're about to install a web server that is going to use certain resources that your Windows uses. So for example, such as ports. Once you install a web server, it will require some port configuration. And these ports are important because your Windows or your current web browser, for instance my Chrome that I'm using here to navigate to the internet, is using a certain port number. When I install my Xampp web server, this Xampp web server also requires a certain port. So therefore, I get a warning message that some of the functions of Xampp may be restricted, but we'll fix that. So no big deal here. Simply click OK to the warning message, and it will bring up the Xampp setup dialog box. Simply click Next. Here we can select the components that we wish to install. For instance, we need to install the server. Obviously that is checked. We need to install the Apache MySQL database, the FileZilla FTP server, the Mercury mail server, Tomcat, programming languages such as PHP and Perl, and other programming languages such as PHP MyAdmin, Webalizer, or Fake Sendmail. Now, these are all various softwares that get installed when you install this free web server. But importantly, for Xampp to function, we need the Apache, the MySQL, and then PHP MyAdmin. Because recall the basic functionality of Xampp is three things, right? We need the database, we need the actual web server to serve the pages, and of course, the user that provides the instructions to the web server. But we're going to leave all the components checked. Click Next. Here's the folder, installation folder. So it says, please choose a folder to install Xampp. Since I already have a folder created, I'm going to navigate to that folder. So I'm going to click on the folder icon and simply go to my Documents folder, my data files, and here's the Xampp folder. Now notice this is the same Xampp folder that we downloaded the actual software in, so we can install it in the same folder. Click OK, and notice your new file path is displayed. Click Next. The selected folder is not empty. Please select a different folder. Okay, so it gives you a warning message that, hey, wait a minute, we cannot install Xampp in the same folder. You need to create a new folder that will contain the installation files. So click OK. Let's navigate back to our folder. Let me navigate down to my Xampp folder here. Here I'm going to make a new folder by clicking on Make New Folder. And I'm going to call this Xampp Install and click OK. Now if I click Next, Xampp is ready to begin the installation process. And if you wish to learn more about the Bitnami for Xampp, you can leave this box checked, or you can simply uncheck it and click Next. And setup is now ready to begin the installation Xampp on your computer. I'm going to click Next, and the installation process begins. First, it's going to unpack all the files and then install Xampp on your computer. Our setup is finished And Xampp asks us, do we wish to start the control panel now? And yes, let's click on Finish. And this brings up the control panel. And here, control panel is version 3.2.2. Now, before I start explaining the control panel of the Xampp, a couple of things I want to add here is during the installation process or before you bring up the control panel, you may have to run the Xampp setup.bat file, and that's a batch file. So let me first show you where this file is. So let's go to our Explorer, and under the installation folder, here's the setup.xampp.bat. And this batch file simply runs and clears the cache and simply runs a small script. For example, if I were to run this again, notice it brings up the command prompt and it will run the script. So this is an automatic process. So before you bring up the control panel, you may have to run the setup.bat and make sure that your C++ redistributable 2008 version is also downloaded and installed before you can successfully open up the control panel and finish the installation process. And by that, I mean, let's go back to the internet here. Let me open up a new tab and simply say Microsoft redistributable C++ and 2008 version. This is a required element of the Xampp software download. So simply navigate to the Download Microsoft Visual C++ site, scroll down, and this is where you would simply click on the download link and it will start the download process for the Visual C++ redistributable. And this is a runtime component of the Visual C libraries that are required to run applications that are developed with Visual C. And since Xampp is an open source web server, you would need this package to be installed. So just simply click on download, for instance, and it will start the download process. And once the download is complete, you simply click save and run the download. I already have this installed and run. So just keep that in mind. This is also one of the components that you may run during the installation process. And if you do so and you do get a message, it will specifically tell you to download this and install it. Okay, so I just wanted to cover this so that you know. So let's cancel. Let's go back to our control panel here. Two of them open. Let me close one. Here we go. Perfect. So here's our Xampp control panel version 3.2.2. And notice the services are Apache, MySQL, FileZilla, Mercury, and Tomcat. These are the options that we had selected during the install that we wanted them to be installed as well. But in essence, we will only use the Apache and the MySQL to configure our web server and to be able to create websites and host on this web server. So at this point, our installation is complete and our Xampp control panel is open. So practice downloading and installing Xampp. In the next lesson, I'm going to demonstrate how to configure our control panel before we can start using it. So with this, let's move to our next lesson.